Week 4 lived up to the hype, baby. Welcome to the Extra Points podcast with the college football experience. My name's Gus, and that's my good friend Cody with the SEC Catch Up podcast. He is joining us tonight. Will is having a family night, so we're letting him take a break. Since I got to take a break, Will gets to take a break, man. I had a fantastic time at the beach. What's better than watching college football on the beach, Cody? Not
Dude,
much.
that's two of the best things right there.
Yeah, man, and it was an exciting week 4. Like I said just a second ago, man, it lived up to the hype. There were tons of ranked on ranked matchups, tons of undefeated versus undefeated matchups, and for the most part, those games really, like I said, lived up to the hype. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts the next day. Man, we see those numbers on the podcast too, kind of ticking up. And then, of course, we are on TikTok and Instagram at the College Football Experience, man. We're going to start off with the game of the day. Might be the game of the year. Ohio State 17, Notre Dame 14. Man, we learned a lot about these two teams here. What were some of the big takeaways that you had, Cody?
I took a lot of stuff away from this game. Obviously, it was one of the biggest games. I think I probably lean, the Texas game, Texas and Bama being, probably the bigger win. But as far as the game itself, one of the better games. Some of the things I took away from this was, I noticed both defenses played good, which I think we kind of thought that, because the fronts are playing good. And then one of the biggest things, how big of a fan I am of Sam Hartman. They held him under 200 yards, which was kind of surprising to me. A lot of things that I point to of what could have been, what happened, this or that, and we know how the game played out. I just think, we've talked about it a little bit on the side is, we expect so much from Ohio State, I think, as media, as fans, as just college football watchers in general. And if you look at that game and it, Notre Dame ends up doing like they're supposed to and, slows them down at the end, I think we're looking at, Sam Hartman is probably locking that Heisman trip up. I think you're looking at Notre Dame as a, for sure
serious playoff contender.
Yeah. And you're probably saying like, man, Ryan Day is just not it. And Kyle McCord is nothing like they say he is, but obviously it went a different way. So all that's changing. And now realistically, it's kind of bad for Notre Dame because they don't really have a chance. That was their chance to say, hey, we belong in the playoff. And now without them having a conference championship, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I mean, they still do have games versus USC and Clemson coming up. Heck, they're on the road against Duke. So I mean, they do have chances to kind of be able to make up ground. But like you said, with them not having a conference championship game, that is going to kind of hurt them when they aren't playing on that first week in December. But a really big takeaway from me is that Lou Holtz might have been right about Ohio State, man. Lou Holtz might have been right.
Lou's ready to swing, dude.
I was not impressed with Ohio State's run game. I mean, they had the 160-yard run, but and then that really kind of swayed their averages. But outside of that 161-yard run, they averaged 2.5 yards per carry. And with those types of running backs, that shouldn't be a thing, but that also could be a testament to the front seven for Notre Dame too. But I mean, I was just something, and it was time and time again. And I mean, and it even came down to the fourth quarter. They were inside the 10-yard line, 3rd and 1, couldn't get it. 4th and inches, still couldn't get it. And if you want to beat teams like Penn State, you want to beat teams like a Michigan, that's going to have to improve. That's really going to have to improve because I think both of those teams are better than Notre Dame.
For sure.
So if you're gonna win those games, that's gonna really have to be an improvement. But whenever you look at Notre Dame, I mean they look like coming out that they had a really good game plan. They were dinking, they were dunking, they were kind of eating up that Ohio State front seven, and then they get that fourth and short. Sam Hartman does not convert, and then it all kind of goes off the rails. They don't score any in the first half. They also do miss a field goal in the first quarter. So I think that the Irish missed an opportunity to really come out swinging in the first, like it looked like they were going to do. But then they just kind of choked that first quarter, and then they got hot at the end of the third. They really were able to drive down the field, start running on Ohio State. They scored twice. They had a 96-yard drive where, I mean, they were carving them up down the middle of the field. Sam Hartman was kind of getting in a rhythm, and then they're up 14-10. They get the ball on their half after Ohio State does not get that fourth and short, and then they kind of start to drive, and then they kind of get away from what they were having success with in the third and the fourth, kind of attacking down the middle of the field, kind of running the ball, and then they try to get the ball out quick to the edges, and they just weren't having it. And then, like you said, man, they shouldn't have let Ohio State just carve them up at the end of the game. And then what everyone's talking about, them having only 10 guys on the field to end the game, man. That was
Yeah.
tragic. And I think they let a game get away from them. I really, really do. Really,
Yeah, I
really
do
do.
too. I think, obviously, props to Ohio State. They found a way to
Oh, yeah.
win. Kyle McCord comes out and has a great game. He kind of puts the, naysayers to the side, but it's more, it kind of falls more on Notre Dame to me than it did on Ohio State as far
Yeah.
as, I definitely feel like Notre Dame lost it rather than Ohio State won it. And I don't mean disrespect by that. I just think, that last, what was it, like 85 seconds, you can't let
Yeah.
that happen, man. And
Yeah.
especially the way it ended, like 10 guys on the field, they want to say, oh, we was worried about a penalty. Like,
Screw the penalty.
what is it, a freaking inch that you're going to give up? Like, you've
It's
got to.
18 inches. That they were on the one. There's 36 inches in a yard. Half the distance. It's 18 inches. You've been stuffing them all night long.
Dude,
All night long, you've been
that
stuffing them.
cannot happen. And
So what's 18 inches?
it's games like that you look back and I'm sure it sucks as a Notre Dame fan because you think like it's bad enough to lose, right? It's bad enough that they drive down and they do what they're supposed to, and it's like, man, we weren't enough. But
It's bad enough
it's
to lose on
worse.
crap like that.
It's worse when like we were a man down. Like that's
Yeah.
just that's bad coaching. And I'm sure, I mean, hey, he's young, dude.
He's an
It's not.
extremely young coach, and
Yeah,
this is his first head coaching job too.
yeah, and I mean that stuff happens, and I'm not saying Freeman's terrible because he let it happen. It just sucks that that's how it ended. But it's great for us because
Oh,
it was a
yeah.
great game. So
Dude, I was losing my mind. I
yeah,
was
dude.
losing my mind because I actually did pick the Irish to win this game at 1, and whenever they got rolling in the third and the fourth, I was like, "Ooh, Betty, my pick's gonna my pick's gonna play out," and
Yeah,
just
dude.
depending on the way it all shakes out, I could possibly win the week, but that did not happen. That did not happen. Will Bates actually ended up winning the week.
Man, dude, he had a freaking great week.
Dude, he went 9-1, and I think the only
Somebody
game he lost was the Oregon State Washington State game.
Dude,
I
somebody needs
think
to
all
feed
of us
him some
lost.
picks or something because he's been killing
You?
it, really.
You?
Nah, he's been killing it, seriously, and he had a great week. I did pick Ohio State, but, it's like we talked about before. That's a game that, if Ohio State wins, it's like, yeah, I could see it. If Notre Dame wins, it's like, yeah, I can see it. So
Yeah.
he was just on the right side. So
Yep. From one classic game to another one, man. Florida State 31, Clemson 24. They go into Death Valley and they snap a 7-game losing streak versus the Tigers, man. They did not hold the lead until overtime. Man, everything from the box score says Clemson should have won this game. Kind of convincingly, but Florida State just found a way to stick around, man. Clemson had 2 10-point leads throughout the game and choked both of them away. Turnovers and missed field goals were the name of the game, and Clemson just found a way to lose this one, man.
Yeah, and it's crazy, dude, because you mentioned the stats lean all Clemson's way, and it's not just from the game stats. I mean, historically, they had the 7-game streak. I think they've only lost like twice in 10 years at Death Valley against them, and it's been like every year it feels like Clemson has their number. I picked Clemson before, and it was one of those. The way it started, like you said, man, it felt like I was like, well, here's another year. But Florida State's finding a way to do it, man. They're down 3 at half, just like they were against LSU. They show, obviously the toughness and the experience from JT and stuff, but they just show they're gritty, man. It's one of those things that they've got some great pieces, and they come out fighting, man. And to get that win in overtime, I know that the kicker at Clemson's gotta feel terrible, but once again, man, Keon Coleman's a dude.
He's a dog.
Man, he is such a game changer, and it's you add that with JT, whether JT is fully healthy or not. That's a combo that it's tough. And for Clemson, to look back on the game, you mentioned stats one way or the other, but if you would have told me just blindly, hey, Florida State's only going to have 22 rushing yards Saturday, I probably could see that because of the front seven of Clemson being so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never think that they're truly, winning that game the way they are, and they didn't give up. So props to them. Clemson on the flip side, man, that's a game you got to have. You can't let it fall like that. You're at home. You know how to win how to beat these boys, and then you look on the defensive side of the ball, like Florida State's got guys out, and it's just it's opportunity missed. So
it's a huge opportunity missed, and are essentially out of the ACC race from they're going to have a miracle for them to get back into the ACC race. And they're surely out of the college football playoff race.
Oh, yeah. And to think that, who would have thought they would be 0-2 in conference like before the season? You could maybe see one, but for them losing Duke and them, man, it's definitely a tough year for them.
It was for sure a super, super low chance of them being 0-2, man. But kind of touching back on what you were saying, that Florida State offensive line could get no push. All day long they could get no push, and like the only production they could really get out of their backs is screens out of the backfield, quick throws out of the backfield, like really getting them on the edge. But man, props to Florida State for being just so gritty and grinding it out. And there's freaking defense in the second half. They stepped up. Like they really stepped up. They only allowed one score, and then they had the scoop and score.
Dude, that scoop and score was a big momentum changer. You got to think they've got the pieces, man. I've told you before, I thought I had them in my playoffs, and not bragging by any means because there's a long way to go. But if you just look at them on paper, man, they're going to be tough to beat, not only because of experience, but because of the pieces they have. And you look across the field, man, you got Jordan Travis here, and you're trying to slow down freaking Johnny Wilson, who's a giant. And then on top of that, you got
Coleman, then you got Coleman and Warlock, you got Benson.
There's dudes everywhere. So I don't know, man. They're gonna be rocking and rolling now because the schedule's, that's pretty much it for them.
Man, but I'm super excited to see where Florida State goes from here, and to see if Clemson can bounce back. Speaking of a team that bounced back, Alabama 24, Ole Miss Do you think the Tide was able to kind of start to roll, or is Ole Miss just not that good of a football team? I think it's a little bit of both.
I think what do I think? I think Lane Kiffin just cannot find a way to be beat Saban, man. It's like no matter how good his team is, he just can't figure out how to
No.
do it. You know, the stats aren't terrible. I mean, it ain't like I mean, yeah, they only scored 10, but I mean, it's not like Dart played bad. I mean, you know,
He di he didn't play fantastic, and they could not run the ball. They could not run the ball, which is shocking because they have one of the better running backs in all of college football, but I just
and
guess
they
that
only
offensive line is a shell.
oh, it's terrible. And, you know,
Ugh.
they only averaged like 2 yards a carry, but my thing is, and it's like I was telling Bates, is Bama is it's not their defense that's a problem, man. Like
No. They have
Texas
a solid defense.
yeah, and I mean, like, Texas beat them, and, you know, they were the better team, but it wasn't necessarily because the defense was poor, it's because the offense is poor, and we're not you know, we're not used to seeing Bama like this, but I think Bama just played to their strength, like, "Hey, you shut down the run game, we're gonna force Dart and them boys to try to beat us. Their
Yeah.
lines aren't as good as us. You know, it starts up front. And then you know how Saban is, man. He's gonna sit back and let you make the mistakes. And he knows how itchy Lane Kiffin gets and going for it on fourth down and doing this and doing that. And like you said, they got one of the best backs in the country and it didn't even matter that day.
No. So, I'm curious to see if this is the Bama that we see for the rest of the season because, I mean, they still weren't able to really run the ball crazy, but they were able to push the ball down the field just a
Yeah.
little bit more, and I'm just curious to see how they hold up against a little better defense. Like, whenever they go on the road to A&M, that's
That's
gonna be the test for this offense
that's gonna be a
because
tough one.
that's a really solid defense, like we'll touch on later. But I mean, if if you're Ole Miss, I mean, I know I picked them to go under 7.5 to start the season. I was pretty adamant that they were going to go under 7.5. I mean, they still have games against LSU. They still have games against Texas A&M. They still have games against Georgia. Heck,
Yeah.
they still have rivalry games against Mississippi State. They still have to go on the road to Auburn. They still have to play Arkansas. I mean, good Lord, this,
Yeah, and Bama kinda gave them the blueprint of, "Hey, here's how
yeah,
you slow these guys." Because I mean and that's the first thing when I turned the game on, that I noticed. I'm like, "Man, they haven't they are not scoring." Like,
no.
slow that running game down, you know, force Dart out of the pocket a little bit to where he's, you know, shaky, and then play your game.
And I mean, that they went 3 of 14 on 3rd down, but I think they went, like, 3 for 4 on 4th down, so that
Yeah,
kinda just plays into what Lane wants to do, but still 3 for 14 on 3rd down is
yep.
a pretty bad number, and I mean, I just wasn't impressed with Ole Miss. I was still pretty impressed with, Alabama. They were still able to throw the ball down the field, which I was excited to see, but man, we just gotta see that run game kinda step up.
Yeah, they just everything that we heard in the offseason just doesn't seem to fit
Click
them.
right now.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, this is a game you're itching. You've been itching to talk about this one, man. Oregon 42, Colorado 6. And man, this was kind of a wake-up call for all the casual Colorado Buffalo fans that are coming in because they're seeing Dion, they're drawing people in, and unwarranted expectations for Colorado got them the ranking that they got them, but anyone that kind of knows anything was kind of expecting this outcome. And there was a bunch of crap talk about, oh, I don't get why Dan Lannon's talking like that in the pregame. Everyone talks like that in the pregame, and it's just a bunch of casual people that are coming to the table that don't know college football. And it isn't that people don't like Dion, man. It's just people don't like the media 24/7, 365. These people that should know better just saying absolute nonsense and absolute garbage, hyping up this Colorado team. But shout out Oregon for doing what they're supposed to do. Thoughts on the game? Because I know you got them.
Yeah, man. This is one that I did want to talk about. Even though it was a blowout, not much of a game. And, you touch on some of the points, and I just got tired of hearing about both of them, man. And it's no shade towards the team itself or, those players or nothing like that. But it's frustrating, man, because we knew, okay, first off, this can, they can still have a good year and be a bad team.
Yes.
Or an average team. Like, just because we hate on Colorado isn't like, I don't know. It's just frustrating, man, because they start off undefeated and people are like, wow, look at the changes Deion's making. And then you look at what they're playing and it's like, dude, that's not the same TCU team that was in the championship, man.
Nowhere close.
Lost their Heisman candidate quarterback. You lose your running back, your OC, like your NFL wide receiver. I mean, it's like one thing after another, and that's a good win. Okay, I get it. But everywhere you look, it's talking about Deion and what he's talking about and what they're doing and this and that and this and that. And then, I think even we were kind of arguing about it as far as like, in the group, hey, should we have this game on or not? And most of us knew like this is how the game's gonna go.
I was sick. I was sick that we put this game in there.
Dude, I've never felt better about a game.
No,
I don't think I felt better about a game than this one right here because I just and we we talked about it before the game, but it's the best defense that we're going to see. You're playing Bo Nix, who's been playing lights out. You're just poking the bear and putting flames in the fire when Dan Lannon's sitting up here having his press conference and all they want to talk about is what about Deion saying this or was Deion, and it's like
right.
I don't want to beat the crap out of him too, and all the little antics and wearing sunglasses and this and that. And if that's how if that's how you want to present your team, I get it. I mean, Deion's doing exactly what he should. He's bringing,
your team.
Yeah, and I mean, he's bringing light to his team, and them starting 3-0 is great. That's awesome. They're doing better than what we thought they could. Right. However, they're still not a great team, and people are, they're ranked 19th in the country, and we just knew as fans. I'm like, that's not the 19th best team in the country.
Nowhere close.
It was frustrating.
Nowhere close.
And I think I saw something that said Oregon had more first downs than they had in freaking total yards in the first half.
Oregon had 22 first downs. Colorado had 21 total yards in the first half.
And they scored like 6 out of 7 first drives. It's like, granted, Oregon did what they're supposed to. And, props to Lannon. He got them boys fired up. Like I said, I was just kind of excited to see it, not because I dislike Deion. I'm getting tired of the antics and them acting like this is a serious football team. They've got a long way to go, man. But I will say this about Deion. As much as he, flashed and smiled during the win, when on their winning streak, he took an L like a champ and said,
like a man.
I mean, he took it. So I respect him for that. I just, like I said, get tired of seeing nothing but Colorado and Deion. That's all I want to say.
Which isn't their fault. It's the media's fault for falling in love, and they want to bring eyes in. They want to bring money in. So they're gonna pump this crap up. They're just gonna stir it up. They just want to get as many people involved as possible, and that's exactly what they've done. All of the TV numbers are proving it, and I'll be curious to see what the numbers are like for USC versus Colorado this coming up weekend. Thank the Lord that's not on the pick'ems.
I don't know. I need all the free points I can get right now.
Yeah, but good job for the Oregon Ducks putting a butt whooping on Colorado Buffaloes. Man, this also could have been the game of the day. Arkansas 31, LSU 34. Strong second half from LSU. Kind of puts them over the line, man. It was an ugly, ugly start of the game. I wasn't able to get great eyes on this one when it was first happening, so I went back and I watched it today. Man, that receiving core for LSU, dogs.
Dude.
They're easily the best in the SEC.
Bro, I've been saying it, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I think a lot of people didn't realize because of some of those names, you don't know, maybe if, you're a Georgia fan or maybe if, you just don't keep up with it as strongly, but that receiving core is so freaking good, man, and you look around and it's like every time I look around, I think Neighbors is catching the ball, but if it's not him, it's Thomas, and it's like, dude, they got some studs on that side of the ball.
They're going.
Yeah,
They're
dude.
going.
This game was kind of weird for me because I debated on whether to pick Arkansas in this game because it just always feels like, and maybe I'm just like overthinking it, but I feel like every time these two play, something weird happens. It's like a
Mhm.
close game, or somebody's not playing like they should, or you
So
know,
this is a fun fact. The last 4 games versus these teams have ended in a single score.
huh.
Like,
See,
yeah,
and that's what like
single score
mentally,
game.
that's where I was thinking, and I'm like, dude, I really want to pick Arkansas, but the way my pickings have gone, I didn't want to take too many risks, so I did pick LSU. But it kind of, I mean, kind of showed you, LSU's hand to an extent. But Jaden Daniels didn't play terrible. I think he didn't play great, but the Arkansas defense is a lot better than people give him credit for too. So
Yes.
it's kind of give and take. But yeah, man, that was just one of those old fashioned SEC games. I feel like you just didn't kind of know how it was going to turn out.
Yeah. And last week, it felt like Jaden Daniels really couldn't miss on a deep ball.
Oh my goodness.
And to start this game, he was either overthrowing, underthrowing. He was kind of getting back to his old self, but then heading on into the second half, they kind of got their groove back, and then they started hitting those throws downfield. But man, this was
Yeah.
an ugly game in the first half. God, this was
Yeah.
such an ugly game, and you had Arkansas. They would drive down, they would get in the red zone, and then they would just find a way to screw things up.
Yeah. And the
And I
turnovers
mean,
killed them, man. I mean,
yeah,
the turnovers really killed them on that side.
yeah. So if I am Arkansas, I am shaking my head that I kind of let this game get away from me because I had every opportunity to kind of go in there early and really kind of silence that crowd
Yeah.
and then but they didn't. So and I mean, I think LSU, A&M, and Alabama, I think those are the three-way race for
Yeah.
the West right now, and I think all of them have serious flaws. I think
Yeah.
that
In their own
I
ways,
think
for
that
sure.
yeah, because I think that this game just kinda was able to reinforce that at times LSU really still can't run the ball great. They still have a very, very, very leaky secondary, and we're 4 weeks in, we're heading into week 5, and, I mean, they still haven't fixed those issues. So I just think they're gonna be issues that they're gonna have to live with for the rest of the season, and they're gonna have to coach around. They're gonna have to
Yeah.
play around them, and they'll just have to see what they can do, man. But I think LSU looked good, but again, they just had their moments where they kind of left me scratching my head saying like, is this team I mean, can this team compete for the SEC? And I just think because of the division that we're in and how crazy the division's going to play out, I think that they could,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, man. I'm so sad that we have to talk about this game, man. Auburn 10, A&M 27. Auburn looked like, well, Auburn's offense. Let me say this: Auburn's offense
Yeah.
looked awful. Only 56 passing yards, but Auburn's defense looked really good. Texas A&M's defense looks insane.
Bro,
Insane. I think Auburn gave up 7 sacks, 15 tackles for loss. I mean, good God. And I don't really know if A&M's defense is that good. I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
I mean, but like, here's the thing. We just saw them go all the way down to South Beach and get torched by Miami.
Yeah, but
So,
I think that's more like
of just like a stylistic matchup.
that, and I think it's more that Miami is better than we gave them credit for,
Yeah.
and because you got to think, man, like they still have a lot of talent. Like
Tons of talent,
they haven't played good
especially in
over
that
the last
front
few years.
seven.
Yes, dude. That's what makes a difference is being able to have that talent up front, and it kind of puts you in any type of game.
Yeah.
Um, I was high on A&M, and I still am. I mean, everything's in front of them. But I think that the defense was just too much, man. And you mentioned Auburn's offense. They don't have a high flying offense by no means, but it didn't help them out at all when they're going against that front seven, dude. And that, I talked about that on my podcast. Is they've got some straight up maulers up front, dude, and it's hard enough when you're trying to break in and a new quarterback, and you're trying to break in a new coach who, I get he's got experience, but it's just one of those things where like I did not like the matchup at all, and I told all my
No.
Auburn, fans and friends, I get history's kind of on their side. I just didn't like the matchup, man, and it kind of showed Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, it showed that Auburn just has a really, really long way to go, but I think eventually we are gonna be able to get there. I just don't think it'll be this season. I really don't even think it'll be 2024. I think 2025 will be a good mixture of talent that Hugh Freeze will be able to bring in, and then I think, of course, he's still gonna work the transfer portal
Yeah.
just because that's kind of the coach that he is, man, but with Connor Wegman going down, you had Johnson come in, and I mean,
Dude, I
and
was about
and
to
I
be
mean,
so mad because I thought I thought surely like, well, Wyman down, like they're about to be in a pinch because
yeah,
yeah, like we knew Max Johnson was good, but dude, he stepped in and
all
was
out.
like, he was like, bet, dude.
And I mean, it's just went to show like how important it is to have quality quarterback depth because you're one play away from having to play your backup. And whenever you look how Connor Wegman's been playing this season, he's arguably been playing like the best quarterback in the SEC.
I
And I mean,
100% agree. Yeah,
and I mean, so when you have a quarterback that's able to come in and the offense isn't able to skip a beat, but they actually do just a little bit better in specific aspects of the game plan. I
yeah,
mean, that's a big kudos to Texas A&M to
for
be
sure.
able to just swap quarterbacks right in the middle of the game and you
Yeah,
don't
I
and
mean,
your entire game plan just doesn't skip a beat.
well, and like you said too, is Auburn's defense wasn't awful. Like
Dude,
defense played pretty good. It's just crazy.
hauling butt to the ball,
Eh,
showing tons and tons and tons of effort. I mean,
Yeah, it's
we have
just
a really good pass defense. We have that boy Asante running
yeah,
around. He's a
yeah,
dog.
yeah, and it's just crazy, man. Because like I said, that I mean, the offense was obviously just better, but dude, Auburn led time of possession and they still doubled their yard. It's like them boys wasn't playing around on offense. So,
No.
it is. I'm sure it's tough as an Auburn fan, because on my side as a Florida fan, the growing pain sucks, man, and but
No.
it's also one of those things that like we said before is not Auburn can afford to lose that game because that's not a way to look at it, but you kind of feel like, okay, it's understandable.
Yeah,
If
just
A&M loses that game,
because
they are
A&M's in a different class,
yeah, if A&M loses that game, we're talking like we're not talking about this game, we're talking about Jimbo Fisher right now. You know what I mean?
possibly getting fired soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and that's kind of what Hugh Freeze was kind of doing throughout the week. He was kind of tempering expectations, saying it's like, hey, it's like we have a long way to go
Yeah.
before we're on the level of A&M, before we're on the level of LSU, Georgia, Alabama, when it comes to terms of talent.
Yep.
Because I mean, they are top 5, top 10
They're
talent
loaded,
rosters
dude.
in the country. In
Bro, they
the
are
country.
loaded.
So
Yep.
so I mean, I expect Auburn to be able to compete with teams like Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss for right
Yep.
now, but then whenever 2025 comes around, I think we should be expecting to at least be competitive and to have close games with teams like Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, LSU,
Yeah.
teams like that. So I think it's just a waiting game. It sucks, like you said, but I think in this new age of the transfer portal and NIL, I think having patience is a virtue, as we've seen with Florida State, as we've seen with Texas. Year 3, year 4 of your coach, man, you have to be patient. You
It
have to
takes
wait.
time, man.
Trust
Everybody is
the process, like the
well,
76ers used to do, man. Trust the
yeah.
process, baby.
Well, it's and everybody isn't Kirby, but also everybody doesn't come into Kirby's like
Situation.
situation. Yeah, but I mean, he didn't come into a terrible team. Like so many people just want that microwave, man, and it just doesn't.
Mhm.
It's not that way.
Yep. Man, kinda moving into a little more obscure games that not everyone was gonna watch, but were still fantastic games. Oregon State 35, Washington State 38. This game was not as close as the final score says, man. Washington State is legit. I mean, Cam Ward, the way that he is playing right now, out of his mind.
Yeah.
I think he went for 4 touchdowns, over 400 yards. I mean,
Yep.
absolute dog, and I mean, they absolutely lit Oregon State up to start this game,
Mhm.
and then whenever they were up 38-14, I was like, um, Imma just turn this one off, and Imma focus on some other games,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "Oh my gosh, this ended 38-35." So I had to go back, and I had to rewatch it all today, and I mean, the Washington State offense kinda sputtered in the second half, specifically the 4th quarter, and then I'm surprised the Oregon State offense was kinda built to kind of make a slow, methodical comeback because they are such a run-heavy team, and then most of their passing comes off of play action, but I was super impressed when I went back to watch the game, them staying in the game, them fighting, them being able to come back. But I think these still are 2 teams that are both in the Pac-12 hunt. I think they're I think they're right in that second tier of the Pac-12 because I think the first tier of the Pac-12 is Washington, Oregon, USC, and then right below them is Washington State and and Utah, and then kind of below that now, since they have both taken losses, are Oregon State and UCLA. But man, that's going to be such a fun conference to watch.
It is, dude. It's definitely like the most interesting so far.
For sure.
I like them more than the Big Ten, more than the SEC, more than the ACC. I mean, it's as far as this year, it is kind of it's
So
fun, And this game, man, I'm disappointed, dude, because all off
so many
season
people were hyping up Oregon State.
and all off season, I feel like all I was thinking about was Oregon State is not going to be as good as they were before, and they're getting this hype off of what they did to Florida in the bowl game, and that DJU's coming over. But I didn't think they were going to be good, and then here I go freaking picking them, and I'm like, I
You're
kind of
picking
got
against your
mad.
gut and your instincts.
Hey, dude, I got mad because the way Washington State jumped out, you could just tell like this is about to be a boat race.
Yeah.
You mentioned Oregon State coming back. I was surprised too, not only because they are run heavy, but because of the way the new terrible rules are and how
Don't even get me started on that bull crap.
dude, you only got like 15 possessions a game, so
If,
it's like
if
yeah, so it's like you gotta freaking score every one, and they did end up coming back, but it was just too late. I'm just disappointed, man, because I knew Oregon State wasn't gonna be as good as they were, and Washington State was as good as their uniforms were Saturday. So
those things were crispy with the gray
yeah,
uniforms, white helmet with the gray logo.
yeah,
Ooh,
dude,
bro,
pretty sweet.
I'm one thing about conference realignment that I wish would happen is I wish teams could get dropped from a conference because there is no reason that Oregon State and Oregon State and Washington State should not be in this new kind of realm of the power conferences, but teams like Northwestern, teams like Indiana should.
Yeah,
I mean, there's teams, say, like a Boston College should. There is literally
Iowa
no
State,
reason. Yeah,
Stanford.
yeah, that these teams and these programs that care about college football so much,
Yeah,
and that you have people that watch these games, like, why are they getting snubbed just because they were unfortunate? And then you have teams that are being grandfathered in, like a Boston College, like a Northwestern, like an Indiana. I think we'll eventually kind of see teams get dropped from a conference because, I mean, if you aren't putting product on the field and you don't have anyone watching your game, you aren't bringing value.
yeah,
So I eventually think as the TV networks get more and more involved and just control the sport more and more, I think they'll kind of force people out and bring people in. But that's a topic for another day. We're here to talk about games, baby. That's off-season talk. And we
that's
ain't doing
right.
that right now. Keep on chugging along. BYU 27, Kansas State 38. Kansas had 21. I repeat, 21 points off of turnovers, man. And tend to think that BYU still put up 27 points after giving up 21 points off of turnovers. One was maybe one of the most beautiful hits to scoop and scores by the same player I've ever seen. It was
Dude,
beautiful.
Kobe
Beautiful
straight up beast
ball.
mode.
Boom! Knocked him out, and then, of course, snatches that ball up, and then they
I thought
give him a
about
pick six.
yeah, dude. I just thought about that Michigan South Carolina hit a while back, and I was like, that wasn't as good as that one, but that's what I thought about when Kobe Bryant hit
Oh,
him.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, but I was impressed with both of the teams here, specifically with their offenses, because I mean, we're both able to move the ball. I'm worried about Kansas's defense though, dude. I mean, because that was a talk coming in to the season was their offense is going to be really good. Their defense is going to be what's going to hold them back, and that's kind of proven true so far this season.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I'm kind of wishy-washy on Kansas, and mostly because of what you said. It's like offense is fine. Um, Brian Borland, their DC? He made it
Mhm.
out like before the season that you know he's kind of worried about it, and they would fix it, and it just seems like they're just a typical Kansas team, you
Mhm.
know, and that's how.
Specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Though they
Yeah,
did only give up 9 rushing yards, but they gave up 357 yards through the air.
yeah, and I don't know, man. It's hard. It's just hard for me to back them. Like they keep talking just like this week. It's just hard. But I mean, props to Slovis and them guys, man. They played tough. Like we were talking about earlier, I think they'll be good in the conference.
Yes.
Years to come. But Daniels and them boys found a way to do it.
Sneak preview to week 5. This is something that we also were talking about. I l Man, this game, Kansas versus Texas, that's gonna be kind of a shootout, and I think we said the
Yes,
total was 63 and
63.
a half, and the Texas team total was 40 and a half. Man, that's such an intriguing line just because of the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
that this Kansas defense is and the way that that Texas offense is, man.
Yeah.
Who, if I was a betting man, I'd be taking a serious look at that. I'd be taking a serious
Yeah.
look at that. But we will move on. One of the uglier games, man. Iowa goose egg, Penn State 31. Iowa embarrasses themselves, man. Why haven't they fired Brian Ferentz yet? If he was in any other situation on any other team, his ass would be gone. Gone.
Absolutely.
It makes
Absolutely.
me sick that a
Yeah.
program like Iowa that has so much potential, that has been good. They have been good. They have had a solid team in the past that they put such a pathetic excuse for an offense and that they accept it and that they're okay with it up to a point that they don't have the gonads in the middle of the season to say, Kirk, your son sucks. He's
Yeah.
fired. But
Yeah.
Kirk Ferentz runs that athletic department because he's simply been there for so long. That's enough, and I'm going to talk about Iowa. Penn State, though, they look good. They look in command of everything that they want to do. I'm still a little worried, though, just because Iowa's offense isn't going to test that defense at all. I am still worried about their run defense up the middle, but I think that'll be tested against teams like Ohio State, teams like a Michigan. But I think that Penn State's in the playoff hunt easily.
Yeah, I think so too. So you hit a lot of the key points on Iowa, man. You
It's
got to
embarrassing.
be. I don't know how many Iowa football fans there are, but they got to be sick, dude. Like 4 turnovers. They only had 4 first downs. Like you got the same amount of turnovers as you do first downs. Like you've got 76 yards total in a game.
That's
Like you
gross.
said, dude, if he's anywhere else, they are like putting a warrant out for him. Like,
Yeah.
come get this dude. So I won't rant on them too long either. It looks terrible. But on the flip side, Penn State, man, they're still doing what they're supposed to, winning games like they're supposed to. This is a game where you really want to shut Iowa out because you don't want that, offense to score on you. I think I'm still well, I'm still high on the defense. Obviously, I think you know they are gonna, like you mentioned, they're gonna run into some trouble when they play stiffer competition. But I think for the most part, man, they look pretty good. Scoring like at will. I mean, they got some really good receivers. Drew Aller is a freaking
He's
stud,
a dog.
bro. He
Like
looks so good.
he is it. Like he is the quarterback that they've been waiting on. Like
Dude,
he
he is
is it.
honestly the best. They've had some good one, like pretty good quarterbacks over the last few years, but he is
But he's a
honestly the best one.
whole different
He
level.
is,
He's
yeah,
a
he is
whole
different.
different type of quarterback.
He is different, man. But like I said, he's playing great. They got some really good running backs. Secondary is great. I mean, Manny Diaz is, proven time and time again that he's a good DC and he knows what he's doing.
Do you think he'll get another you think he'll get another shot at being head coach?
I don't know, man. I think guys like him should stay in that
A
type of role
coordinator.
because
Kinda
you
like a Muschamp,
Muschamp,
possibly.
like like who's some other ones? Like I don't want to just use Florida people, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. But those type of guys,
Charlie
it's
Strong.
yeah. I mean, it's just Manny Diaz is good at what he does as a
He's
DC.
he
And
is
it's the same thing
phenomenal
Muschamp is. Defense, man, and you help a team out so much more
by
at
being
that
what you're
role
doing. Yeah.
than taking on too much. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think will he get another shot? More than likely, if they continue to have success, more than likely.
Yeah.
But no, it's easier said than done because we're not Manny Diaz. But I just feel like if you're Manny, dude, the reward is so much higher being, in the chase for playoffs and, a chance at winning
Championship.
rings and
Yeah.
recruiting really good guys rather than just having your own program. I mean, he's
Yeah.
done it now. Like you've already done it. Like,
You've
stick to your
you've already
gun.
lived that life, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, make your money on that side of doing a DC, and I think he's good at it. So,
Yeah,
like I said, I was impressed with Penn State. I think, as of right now, I'm with you. They are, chasing that playoff until they show us otherwise. I do tend to get kind of high on Penn State year after year, and they always burn me. So I won't do that this year. I'm not, too high on them as before. But I think the what are they, like, 7th overall? I think that's fitting
yeah,
for them, and we'll find out more about them later on. But
yeah.
Iowa's a joke.
Man, and the only part of this Penn State offense that I want to see more of is surprisingly their offensive line. I mean, they are kind of turning into more of a perimeter run team, which
Mm,
kind of says about the push you have up front,
yeah,
which hasn't been fantastic. So hopefully they can kind of clean that up. I mean, we are kind of getting into week 5. I mean, the season's almost halfway over. Like we're 1/3 of the way through the regular season.
yeah.
So if you aren't kind of making changes now, and if you aren't kind of trending here within the next couple weeks, man, you're kind of gonna be who you are.
Yeah, and for that, like, speaking on that, I feel like obviously the offense did its job, but if I had to nitpick it, they're kinda
Yeah.
dink and dunk, man. It's kinda
Yeah.
like, I mean, even as good as Drew played, he only had, like, a 4 point something, yards per pass. I think the longest, receiving was, like, 14 yards or something, and
So that they aren't stretching the field, and it was absolutely pouring rain there too.
yeah, yeah. So it is hard to, judge, but you look on the flip side, that is a good Iowa defense. So,
True.
they were able to kinda, make some shake on that defense, and I don't know, like you say, I mean, they probably are what they are at this point, but we'll kinda find out more later on, I feel like, with them.
For sure. And last but not least, the ugliest game of the day goes to UCLA 7, Utah 14. And I mean, this game had so much hype going into it. It was UCLA's offense, young quarterback going on the road against a Utah team that still got a bunch of people out. But I mean, what is it about that Utah culture, man? They play such hard-nosed defense that it seems like it doesn't matter who they're playing or who they have injured, who's not playing for them. I mean, they just seem to have it. And it's ingrained into every single one of their players. You're not moving this ball on us. You're not doing it. Like it is like etched into them.
Yeah.
And I love it, but at the same time, I hate it because dadgummit, they keep proving me wrong. I mean, I I haven't picked a Utah game right. I think I picked them to beat USC last year in the regular season, but that seems like the only Utah game that I've ever picked right.
Dude, so I know, obviously, I was messing with you because we talked about this game, and it was in the pick'ems, and I had Utah quite literally all week, and I was talking to you, and I listened to JP, and I was like, "Man, I just don't know." Like, I felt like it was kind of a fluke against Florida, and
I would pick
right,
Florida.
I mean,
If
rightfully so, but I don't know. Sometimes my fan mentality kinda pushes my head aside, so I was, like, in my mind, just thinking, like, I think it should be Utah, but then the more I thought, and I really overthought it,
Mhm.
but then the game comes out, dude, and it's like,
It's an ugly game.
what? It's just the Pac-12 is so good offensively, right? Like
Mhm.
Washington, Oregon, USC. I mean, all these guys can score like crazy, and then you always hear the term of, "Well, defense wins championships," and it truly changes a game if you have that type of defense. Now,
Yeah.
it's different than having a good defense and a great defense, and they just have
Mhm.
a great defense, man, and
And plus, like, they even have guys out. Like
yeah,
like they have star players that are out on the
yeah,
defensive side of the ball. And I mean, they are dogging these folks. I
Yep,
mean,
and
giving them no room to breathe.
yep, and one of the biggest reasons I picked Utah before I flipped was I read a stat that said a freshman quarterback hasn't beat them since 2016. That was Justin Herbert.
Mhm.
So, which was obviously a really good player. And I'm thinking, man, no way Dante Moore does that. But we like Dante Moore, man. At least I do.
Yeah.
I think he's
He is
good, dude. And
extremely talented, has
like I
tons
said,
of potential.
the more I thought about it, the more I was like, nah, Utah is more of a fraud than I'm giving them credit. And I flipped, and obviously on the wrong side of that. Utah is just gritty, man. It's I don't try to overuse that term. They're just one of those teams that the
It's just
culture is
ingrained in their culture,
dude.
yes.
The culture is really strong. The defense is really good. The front seven, we always say it starts up front. Their front seven is really, really strong. You got
Mhm.
a super fast quarterback where they can, kind of just lean on the run a little bit. And
Yeah.
to hold them boys to 7, I think they ended up scoring late in the 4th. And that's what it's gonna take. To
Yeah.
beat Utah, you're gonna have to find a way to score on that defense. And
Mhm.
as of right now, they just nobody can find a way to do it good.
Yeah.
So I'm with
And
you.
we're still waiting on Cam Rising to get back.
And that's the
And
other thing is like, you
just
that
keep the boat afloat until Cam Rising gets back, and that's what they're doing.
and they're also realizing like obviously Cam makes them so much better. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
they don't need him, but it's almost like, hey, take your time because we're still winning. We don't
Yeah.
have to have you. Yes, it'd be
Yeah.
great to have you, but we just beat a good Florida team, and then you
Went
see what they
on the
do
road
against
to
you.
Baylor.
Yeah, and then everybody talks about how creative Chip Kelly is and finding ways to score and this and that, and they shut them down, man. So it's
Yeah.
to be able to be fully healthy going into some of those bigger games is going to be huge for them, and to get this win is it's massive, man.
Huge, huge win. And that wraps up the recap of week 4. Man, kind of an impromptu segment. Who is your winner of the week and who's your loser of the week? It can be a player, it can be a program, it can be anything. Winner and loser of the week.
As of last week, right?
As of week
Let's see.
at the end of week 4. Yes. Who is your winner
Let's
and loser
see.
of the end of
So my
week 4?
loser is extremely easy. Well, I guess not. I mean, I want to say Colorado's my loser because just the height that they had. But realistically speaking, I guess, people had more to give up, I guess, um, like you, and what I mean by that is like you could pick Clemson and say that was the loser of the week because they really kind of, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know a better word of they screwed their season, dude. Like that's it. Like that's out the window. You can have a good year, but as far as anything other than just having a good year, like that's out the window. Playoffs
Yeah.
gone, championship gone. You probably don't, I mean, you don't make the ACC championship more like.
Yeah.
So I want to say Colorado just because of everything that we talked about before, but I will say Clemson just because
You
of
stole my loser, man. I was gonna say
yeah,
Clemson was the loser of the week, man, because
I think
they
so.
gave
But
that game away.
yeah, they gave the game away. You tossed any
Hope
I
of an
guess
extravagant and a
yeah
deep run in the
any
postseason.
any postseason fun is straight out the window.
Mhm.
So, I don't wanna say Ohio State because I feel like that's who you may have.
No, no, that is
Okay,
not who I have as the
okay.
winner.
I will say Ohio State as my winner, because you go on the road, you beat an extremely good Notre Dame team. Um, Kyle McCord has kinda, like hasn't really found himself. He's been playing good, but hasn't had, like, that, we can lean on you type feel. After this game, you do. But they are my winner strictly because of all the reasons I said before. And that is if this game goes the other direction, if Notre Dame wins this, we're sitting here saying, is Ryan Day the right guy for the job? Kyle McCord isn't good enough. Ohio State's going to get stomped by Michigan again. We're saying Notre Dame is Sam Hartman's on the way to his Heisman. They're in the playoffs. Blah blah blah. It didn't go that way, and it quite went the opposite. I think you have if you're an Ohio State fan, you have a good feel now of like, hey, we still have a lot ahead of us, and we still, it's time to go get that Michigan team because they're itching to do that, and you find out that Kyle McCord does have that, maybe not X factor, but he does have what it takes to go win a game, and say what you want to about the 10-man, they found a way to do it. They still scored.
Yeah.
I mean, because if they don't, then everybody's like, Notre Dame's so good, those boys couldn't even score against 10-man field. So I'll say Clemson's my loser because throwing away, and I'll say Ohio State is my winner just strictly because they had a really good win and are still doing like they're supposed to.
I got 2 winners of week 4. My first winner.
I didn't know we could have 2
winners, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
Plural. And so I say my first winner is the Pac-12. They have 3 serious playoff contenders in Washington, Oregon, and USC. And they kind of have some dark horses with Utah, even though I still don't think Utah's like a serious contender. They're still kind of a dark horse. And with Washington State kind of popping on the scene, they're kind of stirring up there, kind of making noise, and then we're going to get a lot better games that we didn't see coming in the preseason. And then my winner number 2 is defense. Defense is back. I truly think defensive football is kind of making a comeback.
Unless you're Cal or Colorado.
Yeah. Then I think that the play on the defensive side of the ball this year, I think it's going to be kind of like the underlying tone of the season because it's kind of been that so far. And I mean, you have Ohio State versus Notre Dame, defensive slugfest. You have Alabama's defense really showing up big. You had Oregon's defense kind of showing up big. And in the first half of Arkansas versus LSU, that was kind of a defensive slugfest. You had, yep, that's what I was about to get to. You had Texas A&M. They looked great on defense. Penn State, fantastic on defense.
Perfect on defense.
Perfect. Goose egg for Iowa, like we've already talked about, man.
Oklahoma as well. They played my boy Emory Jones, and both of those teams played pretty good defense if you think about it, because Oklahoma was spreading teams on offense and they held them to 20, and then Oklahoma ended up holding Cincinnati and then boys to 6. So that was another one.
Playing really good defense. They have like the 3rd overall defense in the country, 1st overall defense.
How about Charlotte's defense holding them to freaking 5 field goals?
Dude, I'm telling you, defense was the winner for week 4. And then, of course, my loser for week 4 is the Clemson Tigers. Pretty much, unless anything crazy happens.
Oh, they're out.
Their postseason hopes are.
I can't even think of a scenario that would put them in. I mean,
Just
it would have to be. It would have to be something so unrealistic that it would never happen. You know what I mean? Like there's no way. There's no.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have to beat teams 100-0 every week. The whole Pac-12 would have to quit playing, and the SEC would have to sit out. Like there would be no chance Clemson finds a way in.
Yeah, but hey, that's what we play the rest of the games for. Man, I had fun talking week 4 with you tonight. Can't wait to talk some more ball with you here soon. Before we head out, I got to say it again. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram. We're going to Tuscaloosa here in a few weeks, man. I cannot wait to start making these videos. Can't wait for us to go down to Baton Rouge. Cody, see, which is kind of looking now, hopefully like a pretty good game if Florida can kind of keep it up, man. Can't wait for us to go down there. And then, of course, we're going to the Iron Bowl, baby. Can't wait to get all these games recorded for y'all and bring y'all on the experience with us. Cody, you got any more words before we sign off, my friend?
No, man, I just want to tell you thank you again. I really enjoyed talking with you and Will on here.
Yes,
I think
sir.
we have, a pretty likewise mindset. Week 4 was definitely the best week so far, obviously,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to week 5 and
Week
breaking
5
some
is
of
going
those
to be a
down.
doozy. Well,
Yeah.
week 5 is going to be a doozy, and you can catch us breaking that down Thursday night. That'll be postable Thursday, really. And I can't wait to do it. And man, week 5, here we come. We will see y'all later. This is the Extra Point Podcast with the College Football Experience.